Siamo qui a Roma, Michel Jarre qui per presentare la sua ultima fatica, la sua ultima opera, Chronologie. Hello, Michel Jarre.
Hello.
Welcome to Video Music.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the philosophy that lies behind the concept of chronology?
So, Chronologie is a special project to me because it's in a way, in my own chronology, a kind of cycle that I've done since Oxygen and Equinox, my first records. It's a kind of voyage through time, about time. It's an instrumental piece made of few songs, few tracks, but there is just one generic name, Chronologie, with various parts like Oxygen was, and I think that in a sense people who have liked Oxygen or Equinox should like this concept of chronology, because I'm in the state of mind I've done chronologies. It's quite close to what I've done for Oxygen, using a lot of the old synthesizers of the 70s, and like the Moog synthesizer, which I consider like kind of Stradivarius of electronic music in a sense, and mixed with the digital loops and the beat of the dance scene or the rave scene of the 90s. In a sense, it's a kind. Chronologie is a kind of mixture between the sound of the 70s and the sound of the 90s.
And I noticed that these are mostly, wait, I see the cameraman. Mi metto qua per la seconda domanda. Okay. Because he wants you to look in the camera.
Ah, ok, sì, va bene.
Io metto la voce su
Okay.
altri mic. Okay. It's a strong research in time, so, because you bring together old sounds and new sounds together, so moving into the future with this strong sense of time and space too.
Yes, the idea really was to try to put together the sense of time, like Oxygen was a concept about environment, and the idea was to also to try to create this kind of bridge through my own time between the 70s and the 90s.
In one section of this press release we had, I see a writing about women, about a concept about femininity. Can you explain to us?
I mean, you know, at the end of the 20th century, we are all chasing a kind of identity through time. I mean, making comparison between the 90s toward the 70s, or the 60s toward the comparison of the 40s, and since the beginning of the century, where we were counting time with seasons, cycle of moons, now we are ending the century by counting time in milliseconds through computers and digital instruments. And I consider that the only moving, the stable cycle of our lives is the cycles of women, and through our lives, I mean our lives are scanned, rhythmed by women from the day we are born till the end. So this is the idea really behind the fact that on the cover of Chronologie you have these 5 generic women. They're almost the same, but each of them are slightly different, like women are. I mean, the same but always different.
Women in this moment are having, maybe because of the opportunities that they have received socially, etc., they're demonstrating a great strength, great imagination, and great perseverance. Many women feel that this is the epoch of a woman. Do you think this is the moment that women are really...
I agree. I mean, in the chronology of the century, I think that definitely the end of the century is the end of the century for, I was going to say for the woman, but I think it's rather the fact that everybody realizes the strength of women. I mean, the world has always been driven, whatever we like it or not, by women, by the strength of women, and I consider women stronger than men. And it's probably the reason why they don't you have maybe more creators in history who are male than female, because maybe a female has not to prove to herself that she's able to create, because she's able to create life, and the men are always trying to compete by trying to compete the ultimate creation, which is life, by making music or movies or books. And I think women in that sense are less obsessed with creation in the day-to-day life, because they're able to give birth.
Yeah, they have nothing to demonstrate.
That's right.
This tour is going to start very soon at Mont Saint-Michel in a few days. What kind of visuals are you preparing for? You've worked a lot with...
Yes, I mean this series of concerts is called Europe in Concert. It's a very unusual and particular project. It's a series of concerts. It's my first tour in that sense, because I've done one-off events until today, and this series of concerts will be one-off events in each country. And the principle of it, the concept of it, is that I design a kind of scenography of 150 meters wide by 25 meters high, surrounding the stage, the main stage, made of screens of various sizes, from 4 meters to a 8-story building as a size. And on those screens you will have projections of giant images or laser animations, not laser effects like in this context, but real images, 3D images, and architecture of lights, all synchronized to the music I'm going to play on stage. And it's a format in which I truly believe, since these last 10 years, I think that it's also to try to escape and to propose to the audience an alternative to the rock concert format. If you think that, I mean, since the beginning of rock and roll, I mean, the visual concept is more or less the same. I mean, we could even consider on a visual point of view and the conceptual point of view that there is no main difference between the Elvis performance and a Michael Jackson's performance, for instance. And I think these days, with the technology we have, with the visual tools we have, people like us, French, Italians, the Latin countries of Europe, have a visual tradition, a link with, like during the opera era, to work as musicians with visual artists, visual techniques. And it's what I'm trying to do with the tools of my time, with lasers or paint box or video, to try to get a better conviviality for an outdoor situation. I think we are all very frustrated more and more to go to a stadium, to go to an outdoor place, and seeing the only focal point is an artist as big as that, like an ant. And that causes, for the audience, a lot of frustration. I think you must match, and it's what I'm trying to do for Europe in Concert, and what I'm trying to do in Roma, because I'm in this Europe in Concert project. I'm going to perform in various countries, including Italy, and in Roma it will be the Stadio Flaminio. It's what I'm trying to do, is to match the scale of the audience, to give more conviviality in terms of a very special PA system, sound that can really surround the people, and also the audience, and also on the visual point of view, to get the real scale of the audience.
Recently I saw the Europa tour of the U2 band, and they have visuals that were curated by Brian Eno with big screens and things, which included a lot of phrases, literature, and almost propaganda. I was wondering, what rapport have you with literature? Poetics, words?
Yeah, I studied French literature at the university. I love words. I used to write a lot of songs, rock songs in France. But I think there is also a very interesting aspect in instrumental music. I think as Latin countries, Italy, France, and continental countries, even including Germany and Spain, I think we have a tradition of instrumental music which can convey other things than words. Because words are, as you just said, are in a way kind of propaganda type of message. With music, it's like abstract painting, it's like sculptures. You don't necessarily give message you have to follow. You give emotions you have to share, which is fairly different. And I think the main difference between a U2 concert, for instance, and the European concert I'm preparing is the fact that the scale of the images are bigger. It's the reverse attitude of celebrating video images. It's the reverse. It's to escape from the video images, to try to find an alternative to video with images of cinema, images of paintings. I mean, to try to dig deep in our roots. I think that we facing the very popular ethnic music, which is rock and roll. I mean, rock and roll is ethnic music coming from America mainly. I think we have also our own roots, and I think that these roots are today European. They are part of the painting tradition you have in this country, the music we have, and it's only by using this that we can be international, universal, not by only imitating the American rock and roll, because then we are starting to be colonized in terms of our own roots.
The videos that have been prepared were directed by Jan Klein. What attracts you to this director? He is very famous for the MTV jingles with a very strong vision.
Yeah, Jan Klein is a very talented director. He's, as you said, one of the guy who is responsible for the visual look of MTV. And talking about time, what chronology is, it sounded me a good idea. It seemed to me a good idea to try to establish a particular pace in that first single, Chronology Part 4, to get a sense of time lapse, of playing games with time, which is really the talent of Jan Klein. So we decided to do two videos for the same track, two completely different videos. One is with a lot of time lapse, archives, and very dynamic editing with very short shots all along the video, and the second one is totally different. It's kind of fable in Brazil, the story of a very odd couple made of an astronaut and an Indian from the rainforest, and it's kind of a surrealistic type of Thelma and Louise revisited type of adventure. I mean, about also a joke about the species in danger, because Indians are in danger and astronauts also are in danger, because since the 60s they are jobless. They have no job anymore.
A group of young DJs have remixed various chronologies, and I hear that you're considered to be a mentor in a certain way to certain groups of rave musicians. How did the idea of giving this material into their hands come to you, and how did you evaluate the results? What kind of
yes, I understand your point. I mean, the main idea. Okay, start again. I've always been involved with the rave scene. A lot of the people of the rave scene and the dance market considered me as a source of inspiration because of my use of all synthesizers, being a pioneer into electronic music, and also in the way that the rave scene is pirating a field, an empty factory, an empty warehouse, like I'm pirating a city or a skyline that I've done I've done that in Houston, or for the venue of the Pope in Lyon, the concerts I've done in my hometown in France, or on the London Docklands, or in China, everywhere, to try to integrate the architecture and the environment. What the rave scene is doing, more or less. So there is an obvious bridge between those two styles. I tried for Chronologie is going to be a series of events, European concerts, but also a series of singles, series of remixes, series of videos, and the remixes for the first single have been done not by engineers or DJs, but really artists involved in the rave scenes, and they have worked directly on the master tape, and they played with all my sounds, they added their own sounds, and I think there is something that I really like. I think the rave movement is certainly one of the most important movements of the 90s. To pirate technology, to play with the tools of today, is always what I tried to do, and I think now there is a format that is close to what I always try to do. So it gave me a lot of energy, and I hope that it gave them also some inputs. And for the second single, in the next 2 months, I'm going to work with other bands from UK, from Belgium also. You know, the Belgium dance scene is very active. So the first single, Chronologie Part 4, you had people like Praga Khan made the Rave Alert. They made also part of the soundtrack of Basic Instinct. Sunscream, UK band, is also doing a lot of very good stuff on the dance market in the UK. A very young underground band, also Black Girl Rock, called me one day saying we would like to be part of the adventure. So I gave them a tape, and they went with very interesting trance, tribal type of mix, and I really love this kind of encounters of styles and mixture of styles.
It's fascinating because usually in the past, in the 80s, the experimentation that musicians were doing, say, in the 60s and 70s had disappeared, and to create a project which was commercially valid, they were pointing only on dance music or rock music, and it's fascinating to see that experimentation can return into a scene as commercial as dance music.
I really agree with you. I think it's a very exciting period, and it's the reason why for me Chronologie is a special project, because it's actually the encounter of the research spirit of the 70s with the kind of rigor, the rigorous attitude of the late 80s. And this mixture, I think, will create the style of the 90s. This kind of baroque encounter between digital and analog, between the yin and the yang, between the round, the circle and the square, between the dream and the rigor.
Wait a second. And talking about that experimentation, in Zulu you had done things with Laurie Anderson, Adrian Belew, and
yeah.
These are both musicians that really try to go through visuals, through
absolutely, yes.
word,
yeah.
and through music.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this kind of curiosity came into you in your early years when you were studying in the conservatory, where they are so strict.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I escaped from the conservatory pretty soon, and also at the same time I was really working with rock bands, and also in a musical research center. I've always been very interested by research and experimentation, and I have a big respect. I really love Laurie. I think she's one of the greatest artists in America, and by this mixture of visual and sound you were just describing. And also, I think that for me, I mean, I really hesitated for a long time between painting and music. I really see music as painting. I mean, like creating soundscapes where the sounds are like colors. And it's great with synthesizer. It's like when Fellini, for instance, is is refusing to shoot the real sea or real ocean, but he prefers to recreate the ocean with fans and cloth in a studio to evoke the idea of the sea. It's exactly the same with the synthesizer. The synthesizer is the instrument of the illusion, where you can experiment emotions and feelings, and you can give the illusion of the sound of the sea, or the sound of the wind, the illusion of the symphonic orchestra, or a dance beat, for instance.
And one last question regards your activity for soundtracks for films. How does that work? Do you create a soundtrack and then the film is edited on that, or do you see the editing and then create music? What kind of rapport have you with the director, in particular with Peter Jarre?
I mean, that is, I mean, it's exactly the reverse situation of making a concert. I mean, I mean, for me, I really consider doing a soundtrack, first of all, as an encounter with a director. For instance, when I worked with Peter Weir for some soundtracks, I mean, mainly it was the encounter that counted, and to be involved early enough, because most of the time the soundtrack is what's very frustrating for a musician is you receive a phone call 3 weeks before the release of the film, and you have to do the music in 3 weeks, which is obviously ridiculously short. But I would say that for the concerts, for instance, like European concerts, I'm exactly in the reverse situation. I'm doing the music, and I try to compose the visual track of the music, not the soundtrack of the images. So, and I love this situation where suddenly you think the visual like you think a soundtrack for the film, but on the other way around.
And if you could choose one director, who would you want to work with?
Uh,
Living or already dead?
It could be a lot. I mean, I really love Ridley Scott, exactly, Ridley Scott or Coppola, or also Stanley Kubrick, or also people like the people involved in films like Brazil. I mean,
visual films.
yes, exactly, and that for me would be a real achievement to be able to be involved in those kind of films.
And one space that you would like to have for your concert, like a pyramid in Egypt or a planet?
Yes, I've been nominated ambassador for UNESCO a month ago, and we have a project for 1995 because it's going to be a year of tolerance in 1995, and UNESCO asked me to create 5 concerts in symbolic places on the planet I mean, symbolic link to the idea of tolerance, and the idea of the pyramid, the idea of, for instance, Ayers Rock, the rock in the middle of the Australian desert, or unusual places like this are considered at the moment, and I really would like to be able to play in those fantastic architecture and fantastic sites. This is the next step after European concert. But in European concert already, I'm going to go in very unusual places like the Mont Saint-Michel, the tiny island in France, the Château de Versailles, the Atomium of Brussels, some unusual place in Central Europe, also a cricket ground in Manchester, but also Wembley Stadium or the Stadio Flaminio, which for me are very unusual, because it will be, I'm going to use the architecture of the stadiums. So for me, unusual place or unusual projects are what excites me instead of following the routine of doing a tour for a year and a half in the same places. So I really, I'm very excited by the project in Roma. For a long time I wanted to do something in Italy, unusual and spectacular, and I think what's going to happen in Roma will be unusual and spectacular, I hope. So I hope that people will join me.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.